idea behind the program was to set up a place where people who are engaged by their Christian faith and also are practicing artists can come to a residency that will respect that, and not only respect that, but also allow an opportunity to think through how one might any decisions one might be called upon to make as an artist that will take into consideration your faith as well. So one of the course that I teach, which is called Christian Theologies of Art, the idea behind that, in order to fit into the idea that we're recognizing our, the faith that we bring to our work as artists, was to give an overview of the way Christianity has dealt with the arts across in its Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant traditions. And by doing that, it allows, I think, practicing artists to see how Christians have understood the arts to function, what things have changed radically enough to make Christian artists now feel as though they don't have a space within the world of art, particularly the secular world of art. So the course is kind of geared to providing an overview of that transformation. From the earliest uses of art in the Christian context, and then both the, shall we say, the philosophy and theology that supports the arts in the Western tradition. My own background, I'm very interested in, shall we say, the historical context for how we understand art to function today. And a lot of my academic work has been around understanding that context. And the Western tradition is fundamentally still a theological tradition, and it had its origins particularly around the time in the Renaissance. So the reason Orvieto becomes such a wonderful place to carry out this program is that it just provides us with so much art, on every street corner, in every church, in every, situated in a place where the arts were so valued across, not just in the context of church and not separately in the context of gallery, but worked into everyday experience, and with a recognition that the aesthetic is an appropriate way for us to engage our spirituality, but to engage our life in general. So Orvieto is the perfect place if you're going to, for me, to teach a course that is touching those transformations in the history of art. The art is there. We go to Rome, we go to Florence, we go to Assisi, all places that were central, and sort of this moment in the Western tradition, where there was a real embrace of the arts in the context of, in the religious context and ecclesiastical context. I think for the studio people, the people in the workshop, Orvieto is situated. It's a beautiful hill town in Umbria, wonderful plateau where the town sits. It's a medieval hill town, but has one of the largest cathedrals, a Duomo, in the middle of the city, that looks over the hill, the valley below. And the reason it's so large for such a small place is because the papacy was there at certain moments in the history of the papacy, and they needed to have a church of that scale. Orvieto is about an hour and a half from Rome by train, and it was a safe location for different moments in the history of the papacy. So you just kind of have right at your disposal, in a relatively small village-like structure, a place where students can kind of get to know the nooks and crannies of the place. The local people, the Orvietani, are incredibly welcoming, and you get to know the town. You feel like you're living there, and it's not so large as Florence or Rome, where it would be a very different experience. It's quite an intimate experience. You get to know your colleagues in the studio very well. You feel quite free to talk about your faith commitments vis-a-vis your artistic practice very openly, and we're there to try to create a sense of community as well. So we have our meals together, we take excursions together, in addition to there being free time for you to do other kinds of travel if you like, or or be just in the studio. You can spend all your time in the studio if that's what you'd like to do as well.
Wonderful. I understand there are a few excursions that happen with the program. Can you kind of walk us through some of those?
We take 3 excursions. We go to first to Rome for all the obvious reasons. Wonderful place especially for the history of Christian art, from the beginnings in the catacombs, for example, to early Christian mosaics to the Baroque period. It's kind of all there. So that's a wonderful location. We do that. We also go to Assisi, which is more in towards also in Umbria. And Assisi is, of course, the location of the Basilica of San Francesco's, St. Francis. It's a real pilgrimage place for many people today. There's the Sisters of St. Clare and also the Brothers of St. Francis, and it's the Basilica of St. Francis is filled with great fresco cycles by not only Giotto, who was one of the most famous early Renaissance artists, but also many of his contemporaries. From an art historical perspective, it's wonderful. And then we also go to Florence, where again, I mean, Florence, that does go without saying, as kind of the cradle for the beginning of Renaissance naturalistic painting as we know it. And so that's another. And we actually spend a night in Florence, so that it takes us about 2 hours to get to Florence from Orvieto. So to have the night there gives us a little more time, so we're not sort of going back and forth, spending too much time on the train.
Wonderful. I understand that the program is done in collaboration with artists themselves who lead the workshop. So can you talk to us a bit more about that collaboration, what it looks like?
Yeah. So we have so the style of the studio program is a workshop or residency style. So our artists are coming. There's not instruction that goes on per se. You won't be getting technical instruction of any kind. The expectation is that artists would come with a project that they wanted to work on, and the leader of the workshop is an artist, a Toronto artist, and also former teacher at Fordham University, who leads the workshop and is there to facilitate your work in whatever way possible. Also, there's you have what we I guess is called kind of crits, that you conduct critiques of the art. Well, that's too strong. People sharing their art in the context of the studio, and David facilitates all of that, and he also facilitates whatever you could bring, really whatever kind of project you have in mind, from photography to sculpture to the visual arts, because this studio where we're located is a studio that's used during the year for a university arts program. So it's incredibly well equipped, and David is the man to facilitate whatever you want to do in that space.
Wonderful. Now, one last question in terms of who can come to Orvieto, who is welcome in the program?
Because we have 2 aspects to the program. So we have the studio program and then also the academic course. People are welcome. We're looking to accommodate artists, obviously, but we're also looking for people who have a real interest in culture, who have an interest in the history of Christian art. So it would be anyone who has that kind of interest, who would enjoy going on these kinds of excursions, who would be interested in a course which you could take for credit or not credit. You can audit it or you can take it for credit. So that means we're looking for students, but we're also looking for lifelong learners who would enjoy that kind of experience. And again, we're aiming to kind of create a community of like-minded folks there. And so that's part of it too. You'll be doing this together with other people that you'll get to know. And last year we had a group that they really formed a tremendous camaraderie and had a lot of fun together. So there's that side of it as well. So I would say as well, teachers, art teachers, we've had art teachers come in the past, in addition to graduate students, who are looking to take our courses for graduate credit. Art teachers have been able to get professional development credit. That happens very frequently for us. People who are other graduate students in other arts and theology kind of programs could also take our courses for credit. Both the studio course and the academic course are available for credit. And the way that happens in the studio course is there's a sort of an academic reflection on what you're doing in the studio, which would enable you to get credit for that course. Toronto School of Theology students have also come because it's an easy way. They also, our courses are accredited there.